The air smelled of pine and lake water when I pulled up to the vacation house in Maine, my suitcase rattling against the gravel drive. I'd come to stay a while, just until the flood damage at my apartment was fixed. This was the house I'd helped build, $150,000 of my savings poured into its cedar beams and wide windows, my name etched on the deed alongside my son's. I expected a warm welcome, maybe a hug from Ethan, a cup of tea from Lila, his wife. Instead, Lila met me at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and handed me a pillow. It was thin, faded with a faint, musty smell, the kind you'd find forgotten in a thrift store bin. "The den's all set for you," she said, gesturing toward the small room off the living area, its windows bare, letting in every curious glance from the lake path outside. I stood there, clutching that sad pillow, as Lila's Aunt Sylvia swept past, her pearl necklace glinting, her perfume sharp and expensive. She was already settled in the guest wing, the one with the private bathroom, the balcony overlooking the water, the space I'd spent hours picking out light fixtures for years ago. Lila's voice was smooth, practiced. "It's a little tight right now, Maggie. You understand? Tight? In a 5-bedroom house I half owned?" I didn't say a word. I just carried my suitcase to the den, the pillow under my arm, its frayed edge brushing my wrist like a quiet insult. Sylvia laughed from the guest wing, her voice carrying through the open concept kitchen. Lila joined her, their chatter bright, exclusive. Ethan, my son, was nowhere to be seen. I set the pillow on the stiff love seat in the den, the one that creaked under my weight, and looked out at the lake. The water was still, but something in me wasn't. She handed me a pillow for the den. 30 days later, I handed her a deadline. "Oh, and before we go further, where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button." My name's Margaret Callahan, Maggie to anyone who knows me well. At 62, I've owned my quiet days. I spent 3 decades as an accountant, balancing ledgers, catching errors in fine print, and saving enough to retire early to a small apartment in Portland. I'm the kind who finds peace in pruning my clematis vines or scribbling thoughts in a green leather journal by lamplight. But family? That's always been my anchor. When Ethan, my only son, and his wife Lila wanted this lake house in Maine, I didn't hesitate. I wired $150,000 for the down payment, my name on the deed for a 45% share. Ethan hugged me that day, said, "Mom, you'll always have a place here." I believed him. The house was my dream as much as theirs. A cedar-sided retreat with wide windows catching the lake's shimmer, a garden out back where I'd planted clematis that bloomed purple every June. I'd come up on weekends, helping. Ethan pick out the oak floors, the brass faucets for the guest wing's bathroom. That was before the flood wrecked my apartment, before I packed a suitcase and drove up to stay, expecting a bedroom, maybe a corner of the home I'd helped build. Ethan's, 38 now, a software engineer with a gentle smile and a habit of avoiding conflict. He's got my hazel eyes, but none of my backbone when it comes to Lila. His wife's 36, a whirlwind of an event planner, all sharp eyeliner and sharper words. Lila runs the house like it's her stage, every detail curated except for me. She's charming when she wants to be, but her smiles have edges and I've seen them cut. Then there's Sylvia, Lila's aunt, 58, a former fashion model who carries herself like she's still walking a runway. Sylvia's all pearl necklaces and floral perfume. Her laugh loud enough to drown out anyone else's voice. She showed up a month ago, supposedly to help with the house, and claimed the guest wing like it was her birthright. That first night, I lay on the love seat in the den, the pillow Lila gave me barely softening the springs digging into my back. The den was more hallway than room, open to the kitchen, no door, no privacy. I could hear Sylvia humming from the guest wing, see her silk robe draped over a chair Lila had set out for her. Ethan came home late, mumbled, "Hey Mom, thanks for being flexible," and disappeared upstairs. Lila didn't look at me again. The lake outside was dark, its ripples catching moonlight like a secret I hadn't yet learned to read. I pulled my journal from my bag, opened it to a blank page, and wrote one line. They gave me a pillow. I'll give them something else. I didn't know what that meant yet, but the words felt like a promise to myself. The days in the lake house settled into a rhythm, but it wasn't mine. Every morning Sylvia's perfume drifted from the guest wing, sharp and floral, like a signature she left on the air. Her silk scarves hung over chairs, her espresso cups sat unwashed in the sink, and her laugh, loud, unapologetic, filled the kitchen as Leela buzzed around her, pouring coffee, planning the day. I'd wake on the love seat in the den, my back stiff from the springs, the musty pillow doing little to ease the ache. The den's bare windows let in every sunrise, every curious glance from joggers on the lake path. I'd fold the thin blanket Lila had tossed me after that first night, stack it neatly, and try to make the space feel like less of a hallway. It never did. Lila ran the house like a performance, every detail staged. She'd organized a barbecue by the lake one weekend, string lights glowing, the picnic table set with linen napkins and mason jar glasses. I thought I'd be part of it, maybe sit with Ethan, talk about the clematis I'd planted years ago, now blooming purple along the fence. Instead, Lila handed me a plate and nodded toward a folding chair at the edge of the lawn. "Maggie, you're fine there, right? Sylvia's leading the toast. She's got a knack for it." Sylvia stood at the head of the table, her pearl necklace, catching the light, her voice carrying over the crowd of neighbors and friends. I sat, the chair wobbling on the grass, my plate balanced on my lap, watching my son clap for Sylvia's speech. Ethan caught my eye for a moment, then looked away, handing a soda to one of the kids running by. "Thanks for being chill, Mom," he said later, his voice soft, like he thought it was enough. It wasn't. That night I opened my green leather journal and wrote, a folding chair, a musty pillow, a house I half own. The words felt heavy, like stones I was gathering for something I couldn't yet name. I started noticing more. Sylvia's skincare bottles lined the guest wing's bathroom, crowding out the soap I'd brought. Lila rearranged the kitchen, moving the salt jar I'd always kept by the stove to a back shelf, saying, "Sylvia likes things a certain way." When I suggested adding my clematis to the barbecue's centerpieces, Lila smiled, tight and thin. "Let's not confuse the vibe, Maggie." I nodded, said nothing, but the air felt sharper, like a blade I hadn't seen coming. Then the whispers started. I overheard Lila on the phone with a neighbor, her voice low but clear. "Maggie's been a bit forgetful lately. I think she's confused about the house setup." Confused? I'd balanced ledgers for 30 years, caught errors in tax forms, others missed. I wasn't confused, I was invisible. Sylvia didn't help. She posted a photo on Instagram, her and Lila arm in arm on the guest wing's balcony, the lake sparkling behind them. The caption read, "Family is where the heart lives." I stared at it, my phone screen cold against my palm. The balcony's railing, one I'd chosen for its carved cedar, mocking me. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I just saved the screenshot, tucked it into a folder on my phone labeled Lake House Notes. I couldn't stay silent forever. One morning, while Lila was out and Sylvia was still asleep, I walked to the kitchen and moved the salt jar back to its old spot by the stove. It was a small thing, childish even, but it felt like reclaiming a corner of my world. I turned off the guest wing's balcony light, the one Sylvia left blazing every night, and adjusted the thermostat from Lila's preferred 73 to a crisp 68. When Lila noticed, her eyes narrowed. "Maggie, could you not?" Sylvia's used to things being consistent. It helps her settle. I met her gaze, my voice even. I've lived in this house longer than she has. Lila's smile froze, but she didn't reply. She just moved the salt jar back. The real shift came late one night, when my phone buzzed under the blanket in the den. It was Owen, my 15-year-old grandson, Ethan's boy, who'd been quiet lately, caught up in his video games and summer friends. His text was short, direct. "Graham, why are you sleeping in the den?" It's weird. I read it twice, the words glowing in the dark. Owen, with his messy hair and shy grin, had noticed what his father hadn't. I typed back, "Just temporary, sweetheart." Thanks for checking. But it wasn't temporary. Not anymore. The next morning I sat on the love seat, the lake glinting outside, and opened my laptop. I dug through old emails, found the deed confirmation from when we bought the house. My name was there clear as day, Margaret Callahan, 45% co-owner. I forwarded it to Clara Hensley, my old lawyer from my accounting days, with a single question. Can I still act on my share? I didn't expect an answer right away, but the act of sending it felt like turning a key. I opened my journal again, wrote, "They think I'm a guest. They forgot I'm an owner." Outside, the clematis swayed in the breeze, their purple petals stubborn against the wind. I wasn't just staying in this house. I was going to fight for it. For me. The lake house hummed with tension, like the air before a summer storm. Lila's control tightened daily, her voice sharp as she directed Sylvia to take the lead on everything from grocery runs to rearranging the patio furniture I'd chosen years ago. Sylvia, with her pearl necklaces and endless skincare bottles, moved through the house like she owned it, her floral perfume clinging to every corner. I slept in the den, the love seat's springs creaking under me, the musty pillow a constant reminder of where I stood. Ethan, my son, stayed quiet, his eyes dodging mine as he mumbled about work deadlines. I'd tried talking to him late one evening by the lake, but he'd just sighed. "Mom, let's not make waves." Waves? I was drowning. Then Clara Hensley's email arrived. I read it in the den at dawn, the lake outside glinting like a promise. "Maggie, your 45% co-ownership is intact. You have full rights to act on your share, including issuing a notice to vacate for non-owners. Call me." My heart didn't race. It steadied. I'd spent 30 years catching errors in ledgers. I knew the power of a single line in fine print. I called Clara, my voice low, so Lila's morning smoothie blender wouldn't drown it out. "I've been given a pillow and a corner of the den," I said. "Sylvia's in the guest wing I helped build. I need leverage." Clara's reply was calm, precise. "You don't need a lease to act. A 30-day notice notarized is enough. You're not a guest, Maggie. You're an owner." I hung up, opened my green leather journal and wrote. They handed me a pillow. I'm handing them a deadline. I didn't rush. I spent the next day gathering proof. Screenshots of Sylvia's Instagram posts from the guest wing, Lila's texts about keeping things consistent, even a photo of the musty pillow, its faded stripes stark against the love seat. I emailed. The county assessor's office confirmed my name on the deed. Margaret Callahan, 45%, no mention of Lila. I felt the weight of it, not in my chest, but in my hands, like holding the deed was holding myself again. That evening, I typed a draft notice to Clara. Prepare a 30-day cohabitation termination letter for the occupants of my co-owned property. The words landed like stones in still water. Lila sensed something. She started a group chat, Lake House. Harmony, she called it, with me, Ethan, Sylvia, and her. The irony stung. Her first message was all sugar. Let's create a peaceful space to move forward. Sylvia's happy to stay through summer. She's already planned the kids' canoe trips. Maybe we rotate rooms in fall. Sylvia sent a thumbs-up emoji. Ethan chimed in. Sounds fair. Let's keep the family together. Not one of them mentioned the deed, my share, the pillow. I didn't reply. I screenshotted every word, added it to my folder. Lila tried again at dinner, plating grilled salmon, with a forced smile. Maggie, did you see the chat? We're trying to make room for everyone. I caught a piece of fish, my voice even. There was always room, you just filled it. Sylvia's fork paused. Ethan looked at his plate. Lila's smile cracked, just for a second. I sent the notice the next morning, notarized, delivered by certified mail. When Lila opened it, her face shifted, casual confidence to something rigid, like ice about to break. She scanned the pages, her manicured nails gripping the paper. You're evicting us, she said, voice sharp in the kitchen. I sipped my coffee, the mug warm in my hands. Not evicting, terminating cohabitation. I own 45% of this house. The law says I can give 30 days. It's in writing. Sylvia swept in, her robe swishing, her voice dripping with scorn. This is petty, Maggie. Over a pillow? The guest wing? I turned to her, calm but clear. It's about respect. Mine. Ethan appeared, confusion creasing his face. Mom, you didn't talk to me. I met his eyes. I tried, Ethan. You were too busy keeping the peace. Lila didn't back down. She spread word to the Lake neighbors, her voice soft with fake concern. Maggie's struggling with the house setup. She might be confused about the deed. I got texts from folks I'd known for years, gentle, probing. Need help with paperwork, Maggie. We're here. Lila wasn't shouting. She was sowing doubt, like weeds in my clematis bed. I didn't flinch. I drafted an email to the Lake community, attaching the deed and a statement from Clara. As 45% co-owner, I've issued a legal 30-day notice to restore balance in my home. I'm of sound mind and grateful for your support. I sent it to 20 neighbors. By noon, replies poured in. You've got grace, Maggie. We're with you. A bouquet of daisies arrived from the book club. No note, just quiet solidarity. Then came the shock. I wasn't just reclaiming the guest wing, I was redefining the house. I met Clara at a cafe in town, spreading out zoning maps and property lines. Can we split it? I asked. 2 units, same lot, separate entrances. She nodded. It's legal. You'd keep your 45%, they'd keep theirs. I spent nights researching, then listed my half on Airbnb. Lakefront retreat, private guest wing, balcony, separate entry. I uploaded photos of the cedar railing, the lake view, the clematis outside. Within hours, a couple, retired doctors from Boston, booked it for 6 months, offering to pay up front. I printed their email, set it on the kitchen counter. Lila saw it, her eyes wide. You're renting our house to strangers, she snapped. I folded my hands. My house, Lila. My half. Ethan stared speechless. You're serious? I nodded. You handed me a pillow. I handed you a deadline. Owen, my grandson, caught wind of it. He didn't say much, but one night, his Instagram story popped up. Respect isn't free. No names, just truth. Lila's face tightened when she saw it, but she couldn't argue with a kid. The lake kept rippling outside, steady, like it knew what I was building. Not just a boundary, but a beginning. The morning of the 30th day broke clear over the lake, the water catching sunlight like a mirror holding secrets. I stood on the porch at 7:45 a.m., a key in my hand, the notary's car parked quietly by the mailbox. I'd planned it down to the minute. At 8 sharp, the locksmith arrived, a woman in a flannel jacket who nodded at me like she understood more than just locks. She replaced the guest wing's deadbolt with a soft click, final as a period at the end of a long sentence. Inside, Lila paced the kitchen, her phone clutched tight, her bare feet slapping the oak floors. Sylvia sat in the living room, pearls, still on, arms crossed, her silk robe pressed as if defiance could be ironed. Ethan was upstairs, silent as always. The notary, a kind-eyed man named Paul, stepped inside with a clipboard. "Just here to witness, Miss Callahan," he said. "As long as it's civil, we're good." I nodded, my face calm. Civility's all I've ever asked for. The movers came next. 2 young men in navy polos, efficient and unbothered. They carried out Sylvia's garment bags, her mirrored vanity tray, her bottles of perfume that left a floral sting in the air. I catalogued it all in my journal, not out of spite, but clarity. Sylvia stood, her voice trembling. "You're really doing this, Maggie?" I didn't look at her. "I already did." Lila spun toward Paul. "This is our home." He glanced at the deed on his clipboard. "Miss Callahan's within her rights as co-owner. This is lawful." By 9:00 a.m., the guest wing was empty, the mover's van pulling away, the lake house exhaling. Lila paused on the porch, her eyes flashing. "You've torn this family apart." I raised an eyebrow. "You built a castle on my foundation, Lila. I just took back my share." She flinched, subtle but there, then stormed to her car. Sylvia followed, her heels clicking, no goodbye. Ethan stayed upstairs. I walked through the house alone, my fingers trailing the cedar walls I'd helped. Staying a decade ago, the quiet wasn't empty. It was mine. I started with the guest wing. I painted the walls a soft lake blue, the color of early morning ripples. I hung linen curtains, light and airy, and set a pot of clematis by the balcony door, its purple petals. Catching the sun, the den became my writing nook, a small oak desk, a brass lamp, no more love seat or musty pillow. One evening, as I dusted the guest wing's nightstand, I found a letter in the drawer, Lila's handwriting unmistakable. "Dear Sylvia, you're the best aunt, my rock. Maggie's just a weight we carry. Thank you for being here." The words stung, but they didn't surprise. I carried the letter to the fire pit by the lake, lit a match, and watched it curl into ash. The smoke rose, and with it, something in me let go. I called Clara the next day, updated my will. Lila's name was gone. I named Owen, my grandson, for 50% of my share, tied to his education, his future. The other 50% went to Lakeside Haven, a charity for older women rebuilding their lives, a nod to second chances. It wasn't about punishment. It was about purpose. Owen came by that weekend, his sneakers scuffing the porch, 2 paper bags from the town bookstore in his hands. "Got you peppermint tea and a blueberry scone," he said, grinning. We sat by the lake, the water lapping gently, talking about his favorite sci-fi novel, the way the clematis smelled after rain. He paused, his voice soft. "I want to be strong, like you, Graham." I squeezed his hand, my heart full. Healing wasn't just mine, it was ours. That night, I sat on the guest wing's balcony, a mug of peppermint tea warm in my hands. The lake stretched out, its ripples dancing under the stars. I opened my journal, wrote, "I didn't take back the house. I took back myself." Home is where you don't need permission to breathe. The clematis swayed below, stubborn and alive. I'd planted it years ago, tended it through storms. It was still here, and so was I. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger's a guest I didn't invite to stay. I thought of my late husband, his laugh, how he'd have cheered me on for drawing this line. I stood barefoot and walked to the garden, my fingers brushing the clematis petals. The lake whispered soft and sure. This wasn't revenge, it was return. Lila handed me a pillow. I handed her a deadline, and in the end, I found my way home.